In the next step here, I have a TSC DA320. It has my continuous media material in here, and the default settings for the printer are for gap material, so it flashes red right away. That looks green on the camera, doesn't it? But it is red. And I wanted to go over the process of just doing basic configuration. I prefer to do it with the home page of the printer. So if you have an Ethernet connection, it's a lot easier to do it from a browser, just going to the IP address of that printer. Now, how do I find the IP address? Out of the box, it's set up for what we call DHCP. So your network is going to feed it an IP address, right? If you look at the printer itself on the underside, you'll see that there's a label right down here that shows the MAC address, the hardware's address. And that is what will be identified by your router, and an IP will be assigned to that MAC address. Okay, so it's not super easy with this printer because you don't have a display to immediately show you what the IP address is when you power it up. So there's lots of ways to do it. If you're lucky, you can use an ARP command, but for me, I use a tool called Advanced IP Scanner. When you do a range of addresses, it'll look for things including the MAC address, and I can see right here, there's the IP that is provided for this printer. So I can then just put that in a browser. Let's see if I've got that here. Yep, 164. And as I refresh it, you'll see the home page for this printer. And one of the things you'll see right away, if I click on media, it says sensor type is gap. So that's the main reason why this isn't working. So let's just kind of go through this page. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see. Firmware, we've dealt with that in a separate video. But I'm going to go through, let's hit the general setting. For doing these silkscreen stencils, I like to have the speed maybe a little bit slower, so I go 2 inch per second. This is the density, that's their term for contrast or darkness, so let's just leave that. I don't want it to be tear off. I'm just going to shut the post print action off. The reason why I don't want it to be tear off is that what that makes the printer do is retract the material before it starts to print. And I don't want this tissue material to wrap around the drive roller. And that's really easy for this stuff because it's got a lot of static cling to it, which you'll see when we actually print a couple things. So I'm going to turn off post print. I don't know what many of these things are. Mirror, we are going to mirror because that's part of our ink stencil process. You can see the default was no, because most people don't want to print in mirrored fashion. We do, however. Head up, sensor, reprint after, that's all fine. We can maybe shut this off too. It's up to you. So I can hit set on that. That's general setup. Let's go to adjust next. This is for pushing the print left, right, up, down, relative to the boundaries of a label. We don't have that, so we don't really need to worry about how that's oriented on this page. Paper width, it's going to be 4-inch. This material I use for this test is just some sample material. It's a little bit narrower, but generally we're going the full width, 4-inch. Paper height, I'm going to make it a 4-inch by 4-inch coupon size. You can make it whatever you want as the standard size. And that's not a static thing. You can control that with the document size parameters you use in whatever software you're using to create the artwork. Could be Bartender if it has barcodes and whatever. Could be Notepad, could be Word, could be Excel, right? So we're not going to do any of that. My sensor type is going to be continuous. And you can actually set up some other things to make the sensor less sensitive to a very translucent material like this. But I really think rather than trying to play a game like that with the firmware settings, it's better just to cover the thing up. So now we're at some media setup. We don't need to calibrate. Serial network, network location, this is where your IT guy can actually then set this printer to a specific IP address, a static IP. It's totally up to them. They can fill this thing out, hit set, and be done. Okay. change the port if you like. I don't know if this actually supports Wi-Fi. Don't think it does with this option. At clock, you can do synchronize this to um, a, a specific time zone or even a website here. I think there's a time.nist, yeah, time.nist.gov that will go out and figure out what the time is and say synchronize. I'll do it every hour, whatever we want to do there. Hit set. You can set up a password so that people can't even get into this page and adjust it, right? So we're good there. Again, the upgrade functions for upgrading the firmware, which we cover in a separate video. So at this point, I think we're pretty much good. So let's pull up the camera again. And we're going to see, I know that's a little bit hard to see, but let's try and see if I can't just reboot the printer or even hit feed. If I hit feed, see if it comes out now and stays green. That's still red. So I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to turn it back on, and we'll see if the settings that we made stuck. It should come up solid green now, and it does. I know that's a little bit hard to see, and I apologize for that, but it is solid green. So we have successfully set up the printer so that it recognizes we have continuous material. I think it does appear that did I actually block that? I'm trying to remember. I didn't actually block the sensor in this case. And I got away with it. So hey, lucky me. But just to be careful or to be safe about it, you can actually put a very opaque cover on top of that gap sensor as well. Okay. All right, that covers the